Major Chadwick. Frank Humphreys was the first Westerner to come to Ramana Maharshi. He went up the hill in 1911 and seeing Bhagavan on a rock outside Virupaksha cave, later wrote, "From that human body, God radiated terrifically." The second Westerner who came to Bhagavan was Paul Brunton in about 1930. Brunton looked upon Bhagavan as a guru, a spiritual master. He elicited Bhagavan's direct teaching of self-inquiry, wrote several books on it, and spread it all over the spiritual world. Reading Paul Brunton, a third Westerner came to Bhagavan. There is an eternal triangle, God, Guru, and man. Frank Humphreys saw Bhagavan as God. Paul Brunton saw Bhagavan as Guru. And the eternal triangle still had to be completed. So the third Westerner had to come. This third Westerner also came from England, and he saw the most natural, the fullest human being in Bhagavan as the wonder of wonders, and stayed put. This Westerner's name was Alan W. Chadwick. The old devotees of Bhagavan endearingly called him Satvik. The Sanskrit word Satvik means peaceful or pure, one who is free from worldly passions and attachments. In Ramanasramam, A.W. Chadwick was known as Major Chadwick, as he had fought in the First World War. He came in 1935 to Arunachala after reading Brunton's book. 11 years before he came to Bhagavan, he had already formulated his own form of meditation, which he was scrupulously following every day. Chadwick later wrote of this, "I had argued with myself that since God had created this world, it was only out of himself that he could have done so. For if there was some other apart from him, then he could not be God, the undisputed, omnipotent power. So I decided that the seeker himself was God. My method of meditation was to make the mind cease from thinking as an individual and just rest in its pristine Godhead. It was summed up as do not think, just be." How prophetic! Even before coming to Bhagavan, his form of meditation was to stop thinking and just be. Major Chadwick read Paul Brunton's book, A Search in Secret India, and there were 3 chapters dedicated to Sri Ramana Maharshi, and it also had his photograph. These 3 chapters, and especially the picture of Maharshi, totally captivated him. He felt, as he later wrote, "Arunachala is my home, and this Maharshi is my spiritual master." At that time, he was in Mallorca off Spain. He immediately disposed of whatever matter was pending, gave up his house and possessions in Mallorca, went home to England to spend some time with his sisters, whom he was very fond of. Then he gave up his home there and started his journey to India. He never returned to England. He was the first Westerner to stay permanently in Arunachala at the feet of his chosen master. The thing that we seekers have to notice is something I felt very deeply during my association with Chadwick, that there was no gap between his determination and his action. After reading these 3 chapters, there was no wavering or indecision. Chadwick knew that Arunachala was his home and Ramana Maharshi his spiritual master. And the next step he took was to renounce. He went home to England to fulfill his sister's desires, and then took off to Arunachala, never to return. After a long journey, he arrived in Arunachala. Standing in front of Bhagavan, who he was seeing for the first time, the Master in flesh and blood, he felt he was seeing in one form God, Guru, and the perfect human being. When asked how he felt, Chadwick later said, I felt the tremendous peace of his presence and of his graciousness. It was not as though I was meeting him for the first time. It seemed I had always known him. It was not even like the renewal of an old acquaintanceship. It had always been there, though I had not been conscious of it till that time. It's just that now I know.